Welcome to A Cinematic Journey, the show where we explore the themes, scenes, and elements of the movies that we love. I'm your host, Peter Billingsley, alongside talented filmmaker and stand-up comedian, Mr. Steve Byrne.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. Looking forward to this one today.
Same here. Well, the writers of today's movie had 6 hours to respond to an offer from Disney for their script.
It was its star's first lead film role.
It created a very un-Disney-like scandal.
It required 4 to 5 hours of makeup and costume for one of its actors.
And is a franchise that has birthed 2 sequels and a television show.
A holiday classic, Pete, we must be talking about...
The Santa Claus.
Santa?
Scott Calvin.
How come your clothes are so baggy?
Because Santa is watching his saturated fats.
How come you don't have a beard?
Because I shaved. Do you want this doll or not? Go back to sleep.
And there we go. We meet Scott Calvin. He's giving a speech at a company Christmas party. He works for a toy company. He's handsome, he's charming, he's funny, he's successful, much like Peter. And he's also making excuses for his lack of responsibility, much like me. He's late to be with his son Charlie on Christmas Eve. He's lying to his ex-wife about crazy traffic that does not exist. We get the sense that this is not the first time this has happened for good old Scott.
That's right. And we meet young Charlie, an 8-year-old adorable boy. And we meet the new husband, Neil. He's kind of an anal psychiatrist. In fact, he's recently told Charlie that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Yeah, he's that kind of guy.
Right.
And it incenses Scott, but there's really nothing he can do about it. Scott is not a present dad, and you really get the sense that there is anywhere else he would rather be than with his son on Christmas Eve. And by the way, his son feels the same way about his own dad.
And after burning the Christmas Eve dinner, Scott takes his son to one of the most majestic holiday-themed restaurants anybody could think of, Denny's. Nothing says Christmas Eve like moons over my hammy.
Correct.
The mood is somber. These two don't really have a relationship here, and all Scott's looking to do is get this kid to bed and get this night over with.
That's right. But in the middle of the night, they do hear a clatter upon the roof. There's a man in a red suit with a white beard roaming around. Scott startles him. The man falls off the roof and dies. And yes, it appears as though he has killed Santa Claus inadvertently.
Not only are you a bad dad, you killed Santa Claus on Christmas Eve.
And after close examination, Scott finds a business card that says, hey, if you find me dead, please put on the suit. Charlie prods him, put on the suit, it's Santa. And so begrudgingly, Scott does, and it appears as though he's got to take over as Santa Claus for the night for the Santa that he just killed.
He's not happy to be there. He's not in the Christmas spirit, but he fulfills his duty to make sure that these kids get Christmas.
That's right, and then they're instantly teleported to the North Pole, where we meet Bernard, the head elf, who is a no-nonsense, all-business guy, and that leads us into the central question of this film.
Let me explain something to you, okay? Toys have to be delivered. I'm not going to do it. It's not my job. I'm just an elf. It's Santa's job, but Santa fell off the roof. Your roof. You read the card. You put on the suit that clearly falls under the Santa Claus. Now you're Santa, okay?
A question.
What?
When can I get out of here?
Dad, you gotta see this place!
You leave tomorrow morning. You have 11 months to get your affairs in order, and you're due back here Thanksgiving.
I'm not coming back here on
I'll
Thanksgiving.
ship the list to your house.
What list?
Come on, the list. He's making a list.
Checking it twice. You gotta find out who's not nice.
What if I don't want to do this?
Don't even kid about a thing like that.
Why not? What if I don't buy into this Santa Claus thing? What if I choose not to believe it?
Then there would be millions of disappointed children around the world.
There you have it. Comes to a screeching halt.
Yeah, that's right, because who doesn't believe in Santa? Well, certainly the elves believe in Santa. In fact, as he's walking around, everyone's calling him Santa. So they know this is part of the drill, right?
Right.
All right, I guess Santa's dead. You're the next one. Let's get to work. But the real question of this film isn't does Santa Claus exist? Because it does. It's will Scott Calvin, this selfish, independent guy, accept the role of becoming Santa Claus, a very unselfish man? And will he do this for the fate of children around the world and his own?
Yeah, it seems like such a simple question that he asks. What if I don't believe? And then millions of kids will, not have Christmas. Little does he know how impactful that question and that statement will be and resonate throughout the course of the film.
Yeah, and in a fun twist of words in this movie, the Santa Claus, which is the title,
Yes.
doesn't only refer to the man, it is a clause, like a clause in a contract. The Santa Claus is that if you come upon dead Santa and put on the suit, you become the
Right.
next Santa Claus. And also a couple cool elements. Scott Calvin works for a toy company.
Yes.
He's in the toy world already. His initials SC, Scott Calvin. So somewhere the filmmakers are kind of implying they're sowing the seeds that maybe he's destined to be Santa Claus. But in just a few moments, he's going to wake up, imagine it's a dream, deny everything, and off this movie goes. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. No matter how many gifts you get this holiday season, you get to define how you give to yourself.
For those who have participated in or have given the gift of therapy, you know it helps people become the best versions of themselves.
In the season of giving, give yourself what you need with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/Christmas today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Christmas.
Spectacular script.
Well, we're excited to have with us today the writers of The Santa Claus, Leo Benvenuti and Steve Rudnick. Guys, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
You guys have written a lot, but going back in time to The Santa Claus, this was really your first feature. Can you just speak a little bit about where the idea originally came from?
Yeah, that I just it just hit me one day. I said, what if you killed Santa Claus and had to take his place? And I
A very well-known anti-Christmas movie guy here.
right. We do have the Judeo-Christian value. Who was the Christian? I'm the Judeo.
Yeah.
Makes the perfect partnership.
So I pitched it to Leo because we were looking for something to write, and he said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "What if you heard something on the roof?" And he says, "You went up there and you shot Santa Claus. You blew him away."
So the original version was just written for us, never thinking Disney would, do it.
Right. It was very dark.
It was a lot darker.
that we did, and
It was a spec script.
And just for context, a spec script being something that you're not paid to write, you guys put the time and energy into writing it, and then you're going to take it out and try to get it sold.
So my advice to writers is write
something
when
so you have it. Yeah.
When you have it. So then we said, well, we wrote this spec script, and they that was started the big ball rolling.
We signed with CAA back then.
Do you remember why?
I remember why. Well, we were working at Carol Burnett, and we didn't have an agent, so the agencies were courting us. So we went to the meeting with the CAA and Mike Ovitz, and we got in the elevator.
And you know who was in it?
Sean Connery gets in the elevator with us.
Steve and I are big fans of, James Bond. We're of that age. And you think we would turn to him and goes, "Oh, we're a big fan," but we just both froze and we're like, then he gets off the elevator and then we get off and it's like, let's sign on this.
Yeah, we got to sign with.
Sean Connery just sits in that elevator waiting to rope new talent in. You know that.
Yeah.
Really wrote it quite seriously as our James Bond because Ryan, my son, was maybe 8 or 9, and your kids were a couple years younger.
6 and 4, yeah.
And when we wanted to write something, we said, well, let's at least write something that our kids could see. So we dark kind of Christmas movie. And then when CAA read it, they said, wow, it's really a nice premise. It was about a husband and wife who kill Santa. And
no kids.
Yeah, no kids. Mm-hmm. And they said, we don't like to tell writers how to write, but we think we might be able to sell this Christmas movie if I don't know if you can get maybe a kid involved in the plot.
Right.
Oh, we did that.
So we changed it to a father and son, and the rest.
And we knew Tim Allen from
the Road.
Yeah, from the Road, working comedy clubs with him, and so he was looking for something. He was doing Home Improvement,
and CAA said, "We don't think Tim could open a movie," and so we got the script to Tim kind of on the side. Yeah. And he read it and he loved it. And he went to Katzenberg, who was running Disney at the time, and said, if you want me to do a movie, this is the one I want to do.
Overnight success.
Tim Allen's attached, the script's in good shape, and Disney was showing interest. But wasn't there like a short window for the offer?
Well, Disney wanted to buy it, and it was Thanksgiving weekend when Katzenberg finally called, and I got a call like at 2 a.m. from our lawyer saying they just called, they made an offer, and it goes away at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Oh my God.
We'd been working in clubs for $700-800 a week, So we didn't know, when they told us how much they were going to pay, it sounded like, $1 billion.
Yeah, it's like, please don't counter, just take it.
Right.
We accept.
What was interesting also, too, is when Disney bought it, they bought it as a Hollywood picture, which was their little independent section.
Yeah, Hollywood picture.
And as we started working on it, Katzenberg then said, you know what, we're going to release this as a Disney movie. We really like this.
Did the script change a lot from your spec to?
At one point, they gave us like a 3-page notes, note 1 on page this, try this. So Leo and I not knowing.
Second act doesn't work. First act needs this.
I had to do this. And,
again,
we'd like to see this light. And we had never written a movie.
Novices, and we had no idea. And we thought this was a marching order.
Yeah. So we took everyone and we checked it off. We did this. We
incorporated
did
every stupid note.
Now, we turned it in, and as I said, guys, listen.
What happened?
This is horrible.
It's
a horrible script.
I'm thinking, this is your idea. I thought it was fine the way we had it.
So we did learn there that you don't really have to listen to studio.
No, you shouldn't listen to them. Their suggestions, their job justification memos.
Right.
They're all those things that go through the pipeline. But it's true. You're young. You don't know. You want to be. You feel great. You feel grateful to have a seat at the table.
Right.
Absolutely.
Tim is the biggest TV star in the world. He was at the time also writing his memoir, but he had never really crossed over into film. What were your expectations in a way of Tim, and what your thoughts of his ability to be able to cross over into a bona fide movie star?
I think we were just happy that it was someone that we knew.
Yeah, that's true.
That it was a buddy, and that we were. And John Pasquin, who directed a lot of the TV shows, was hired as the film director. So you had me and Leo, who had never written a film, Tim, who had never starred in a film, and Pasquin, who had never directed a film.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think all of those things kind of combine to there's we have very low expectations probably for this. So let's just make a good movie. Let's just try and have fun.
And Tim understood, because we kept on saying, whatever we do, let's not do a movie about this, or let's not add. He was completely on board with us. So It's not like we had fighting an ego or anything. He really was cool about the whole thing.
Room to grow.
You have a lead in this, in Scott Calvin, who is sort of really not pulling any punches in the first act. Like, he doesn't want to be with his kid. His kid's begging his mom on the side to pick him up early on Christmas morning to get out of the house. Can you talk a little bit about it, just creating a flawed character and that balance between kind of liking them, but also allowing them to be broken?
I think he was very relatable. I mean, Steve had a kid. I had 2 kids. So these are things that we thought was normal. Like sometimes I'd read, to my kids going to bed, and after 2 pages, they'd be bobbing off, and I'd be like, and close the book.
Away to the window, I flew like a flash, but miniature sleigh and Saint Nick and I have been transferred dancer enough to say into all.
And I thought that might be funny to put in. I think people could relate to that.
Right.
You wouldn't go on eating.
But on Christmas Eve, yes.
Yeah.
And I think Tim had the advantage of, even if he was being that darker kind of character, he was still at that point America's dad.
Yeah,
he'd been on TV, and they knew Tim Allen. And I think even just watching that, he's lying, he's not a great dad, but I'll bet that he makes a turn somewhere in this movie.
Yeah,
and becomes a good guy.
Yeah.
But I think he did have that advantage, that how likable he was as a performer at the time.
That's true. That had a lot to do with it. Yeah.
And the tone of the film too. Film's really about something. It's funny, and there's jokes, and you have obviously the sort of lingering question of, will Scott accept this role as Santa? But at its core is kind of a broken family. And things start to get real when the courts intervene. How did that kind of come into the central core of the film?
I think we wanted to have that as Scott's becoming more into being the Santa figure, that he's being forced out of his kid's life, and how devastating it was. I'm finally making a connection with my kid.
Right.
And now, and it also led to what I think was one of the funniest scenes we had that got cut. That Santa's there, and he's at his desk, and he's all depressed, and he opens the desk, and he reaches in, and he pulls out
a gun, and he pulls it up to his mouth and he bites it because he realizes it's chocolate.
It's licorice.
Oh,
Whatever. Yeah. And everyone in the room laughed, and we're like, "Okay, put that in. That's funny." And then they had time to think about it.
And then Disney said, "You can't have him put a gun in his mouth." No,
it's Santa Claus.
it's chocolate. He's depressed, so he eats. It's hysterical.
Claus with an E.
One of the cool things about Christmas movies is you get to create your own mythology. And this movie, I think in particular, has a lot of great details in it. The title, the Santa Claus, this notion that it's not really a name, but it's a clause in a contract. You guys' definition of why Santa Claus has been around a long time is because they expire and then a new person takes over. And you talk just a little bit about creating those elements.
Well, to go back, Disney was really good about taking our script and making it. And, it was very close to what our original draft that we turned into Disney and the movie became. But they really missed the ball because we had a vision because of what we set up and getting back to the James Bond thing, where we wanted it to be like, okay, so you do the Tim Allen movie and then you do a sequel with Tim Allen and then he gets killed and then the next Santa Claus comes. So it's like a James Bond thing where, a guy gets to be Santa Claus for 2 or 3 movies and then another person and then another. So that was our initial idea of how this would work out.
But we know the mythology of it all, and we just had a lot of fun, trying to create a logical explanation that makes sense.
Right. You also chose to have reindeer like that kind of grunt and growl, but don't really speak.
That was one little argument we had. I wanted to have Rudolph, and Steve's like, no, Rudolph is not one of the reindeer.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, Dasher, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cougar, Darling, Vixen. Yeah, Vixen. And it was Nixon.
You also did something very cool with the elves, and I want to show just a little clip for the audience.
I brought you some cocoa.
Oh, thanks.
My own recipe. Took me 1,200 years to get it right.
1,200 years.
That's right.
I must say, you look pretty good for your age.
Thanks, but I'm seeing someone in wrapping.
This is good. This is really good.
Not too hot. Extra chocolate. Shaken, not stirred.
Shaken, not stirred. There's your James Bond.
Your shout out to James Bond, which is cool.
I just seeing that clip. I think if we had written that today, we would have been canceled. Tim hit it.
Right, yeah.
Well, it's a needle thread joke, but it works because technically she's 1,200. But you made a decision to, again, I think in the create your own mythology that elves traditionally might have a certain kind of appearance that we're used to. In Elf, they did forced perspective and raised voices. You did 1,200-year-old children. How did you land there?
I think that was Pasquin who.
Maybe it was.
I don't remember that we specifically said in the script that
they're that old,
that they're kids. But again, I think that just worked because Pasquin did add the fact that if you watch the movie,
they're out in the real world. The younger kids sort of have pointy ears.
Some kids have elf ears in the real world. That are out there,
they're
and that was something that Pasquin added that I thought was pretty cool.
That maybe they're elves walking among us,
right? You never know.
I want to ask you guys this: are you surprised at the significance? You're 2 guys, you're on the road, you come up with a premise, you rent an office in Chicago, and here we are, almost 30 years later. Are you just blown away at the resonance and the impact this film has had all these years? Even our producer was just like, this was my Christmas film when I was a kid.
I'm getting at the age now where it's like impressed and like I thought you were dead kind of.
Right.
You're still alive?
You know what? Alive?
No, it never tires when someone seems impressed that we wrote those things.
Well, guys, thank you so much for sharing all of the insight and going back in time here. It's just really fun to talk about these movies. As we said, the power of them, this movie is going to live on for a very, very long time, and it's a testament to the great work which you both did.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
If you're running a small business, especially around the holidays, you know things can get very stressful. New customers and new heights means new problems every single day. And as your business grows and your company expands, the simple tasks you used to do in a day are now taking weeks to complete.
Well, this is you. You should know these three numbers: 36,000, 25, 1.
36,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more.
25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs.
1, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all your key performance indicators in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins.
Everything you need, all in one place with NetSuite.
Right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance. Absolutely free at netsuite.com/Christmas.
That's netsuite.com/Christmas to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/Christmas.
The man with the cam.
We're very lucky to have in studio director of photography of the Santa Claus, Walt Lloyd. Thank you so much for coming in. No, you don't do this a lot, and this, as you said, is one of your very few or first times being interviewed.
Well, yes. I mean, I've only been in the business for 60 years, so,
It's taken a minute.
No, but thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And
Well, to that point, I just want to share a select list of some of your work: Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Steven Soderbergh, Pump Up the Volume, Empire Records, Shortcuts, the Robert Altman film, Private Parts for Stern, and so many others. So you had done a lot of films, and you get the Santa Claus. You remember your first reaction when you first read the script?
Well, I loved it. And by the way, I hadn't really done that many films, maybe 4 or 5 before. And I had a daughter who was 3 years old at the time.
And you can't show her Sex, Lies, and Videotape, so you got to...
Absolutely. But yeah, no, I just thought it was a great, Christmas story. It wasn't, it felt to me like, it was a little dark. It started out dark, but that spirit of Christmas just builds through the whole story. And what is it? The theme, seeing is isn't believing, but believing is seeing. Did I get that backwards? But the theme, really struck a chord.
This film was, I think, moderate budget, right? Did you get sort of adequate prep? Did you feel as though you were brought in with enough of the resources which you wanted?
There wasn't a lot of production money, and then I knew the effects. There wasn't a lot of money for visual effects.
Right.
I knew we'd have to do a lot of things in camera. The set was built in an old soap factory in Toronto, and it was so packed, in fact, that the aisles between the sets were measured so that we could get a scissor lift and a condor through, but getting it was only one lane. And I remember spending Saturdays there with the construction crew standing on top of a scissor lift directing traffic,
like a traffic cop, right?
Yeah,
Said it that
hold
way.
the condor back there, and let's get the scissor lift through first. Because it was a soap factory, there were the usual problems going on with building a set, in a warehouse, which are you have the support columns all through the set, which you don't normally have on a stage.
Yeah.
And there's no grid or no green bed for grid,
And a grid being something that's elevated where you would hang rigging and lights from, and you can drop up and down and adjust.
Exactly.
It's a very useful
It's a makeshift
tool.
studio that you guys are basically in.
Right. You're just taking a box and trying to convert it into a place to work in.
Yeah, it wasn't even a makeshift studio. It was just it was a factory.
Right.
And it was jammed. I mean, there was so many sets in there.
Baby, it's warm outside.
One of the challenges of this movie as well, because of Tim Allen's schedule, that he was doing the television show at the time, also was touring on stand-up, he had a window in the summer.
Yeah.
And it was summertime to go do a movie that takes place in the winter, which is never fun and can be challenging. And also as a cinematographer, you can't just draw off the environment and breath. And when you're outside, it's supposed to feel cold. Well, yeah, because it is cold. Can you talk just a little bit about having to work and create the feeling of cold winter Christmas when you're actually in the summer months?
Well, first of all, let me say, any film is a huge collaboration, and kudos to the set dressers on this one, because laying the snow was mostly snow blankets.
Yeah, and snow blankets were just literally that. I mean, they're kind of a white blanket that when you lay them right, it looks like snow, how it would sit on a roof or on a car hood and they're a great tool to be able to dress in, and you can fly them in if you notice, we've got a spot in this frame. They can run them in and place them down, and it kind of looks like distant snow.
And then in order to make the piles of snow on the curb, that the plow has plowed off, I think we use potato flakes for that. Definitely use potato flakes for the falling snow. When there was a falling scene. I feel like the snow was really, believable. But, on some of those wide crane shots that we did, those night shots, I mean, they literally had to lay 2 blocks of
It's
snow.
a lot of real estate.
Yeah, and, what people don't realize is you can't just go into a neighborhood and lay snow blankets on every house. You have to get permission from every person in that neighborhood that you're affecting, and every person that you're diverting their usual traffic route around.
Sure.
And that's why I say it's such a collaboration to do a film. The locations people did a great job in
and they get
that.
shaken down a lot by a homeowner who's like, sure,
the one holdout.
I'm open to it. What are you going to do for me?
They get shaken down by anyone who has a leaf blower in their garage,
Right.
It's 100% true. Can't tell you how many times I've been shooting, and then, some dude starts to do his lawn or just starts playing music, and it's just a shakedown.
Yeah.
It's a big wad of cash, and they're walking around just greasing people to get them to be quiet or move their car. Whatever leverage someone has in the neighborhood, they use.
I've worked in L.A. and seen, the lawn trucks, follow production.
Oh, my God. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Production chasers.
It's easier than mowing the lawn.
It's easier. Exactly. Yeah. Just smart. Yeah.
Start pulling your ripcord and say, hey, can we get you guys out of here? Sure. Okay, bye. It's like a business.
Pressure cooker.
Tim has talked about the fat suit, how torturous it is. I mean, he's talking 4 to 5 hours. Yeah. The combination of the fat suit, the skin, the facial hair, the hair, all these elements that have to go into this transformation of his body.
Yeah.
There's the front end time in the chair, then there's the back end time to get out. And in between are those windows to shoot.
Yeah. There was no time for messing around after he got on the set. I don't know how he did it. It was 95 outside. It was probably 100 in there.
Oh my God.
And then he had this suit on. We had air conditioners, the usual hoses, that you pull and try to get it. But you can't air condition a set that big or a stage that big that's not designed to be air conditioned. But here's a guy that through the course of this film is supposed to be gaining weight, and that fat suit when he's in it, he would lose 5 pounds a day, on that thing. He would sweat it out. But what a professional to work with. I mean, he never really complained. He made, jokes, but
it's one thing to say, "Oh, come on, man, you're starring in a movie." It's very hard, try it at home to sit for 3 hours still, which is basically what you have to do. Yeah. You have to sit still while they put all kinds of things on you. And then sometimes they put those straws in the nose to breathe while they do glue and other things.
Well, every guy that plays Batman is wild. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get in that suit again.
I think it's why there's a lot of one and done Batmen, because they're like, I'm not doing it again.
I mean, I can't imagine.
Kind of a dream job on the front end, but then they're like, no thanks.
Yeah.
You can't open your mouth, you can't talk, and you breathe through these straws,
And in Tim's case, you got to go to the hardest place possible. You got to make people laugh.
Yeah.
It puts a lot of pressure on you to get that right in the middle.
I felt more pressure working, when Tim was in the suit. I wanted to get him out of it as quickly as possible.
Naughty number.
Tim's obviously known as a stand-up, and then coming from the 30-minute sitcom, and that show was so huge at the time. As you're going along, were you kind of surprised or shocked at how grounded he was and how great of a dramatic actor he is, especially that back half of the film?
I knew he had a lot of chops as an actor, and I think as a comedian, which you probably know, you have to be an actor. You have to have a range and be able to emote, and he did a great job.
Did he improv a lot? Would he come up with things, or did they stick pretty close to the script on this one?
He obviously. No, I think he improv quite a bit. I don't know. I don't remember whether they cut it because my script was gone when I saw the film. But I know, obviously, the 1-800-SPANK-ME, was an improv.
That's exactly right. So 1-800-SPANK-ME is in the original release.
Right.
Here's Neil's mom's number in case.
1-800-SPANK-ME. I know that number.
And a Merry Christmas to you, too.
A lot of kids start calling it, and it's an active, phone sex line.
Right. A lot of kids start calling it, but there was one kid who ran up an enormous phone bill. And that, I think the bill was sent to Disney, and, the uproar began.
You're just a guy goofing on set, and you have no idea the ramifications that are going to happen afterwards.
You got to be careful.
It's so true. And it's why every phone number is 555, and it kind of drives us nuts.
Right,
Even as moviegoers, I hate it.
I know.
They try to think of creative ways to do it, but it's kind of there for a reason, because the first thing we would do as kids, if we saw a phone number, we'd be like, oh, call it.
Yeah, of course.
Is so-and-so there?
Yeah.
And you'd want to kind of abuse it, but this kid really went to town on 1-800-SPANK-ME and really kind of took advantage of it. And for a Disney film, it's kind of the worst optics, right? It's like, you don't want that in a Disney movie.
Yeah, but look at it the other way. It got a lot of publicity for the film.
It cost them $700 and some headaches,
really.
but they probably made a lot in ticket
When
sales.
he called 1-800-SPANK-ME, they took him to the happiest place on earth.
Really. And probably, that phone line made a lot of money on the film, too.
It was a win-win, I guess, when you look at it that way.
Yeah.
Claws and effects.
There are a lot of practical effects in this movie. And also this was at a time before the sort of easiness to do everything through visual effects.
Right.
Would love to look at a clip and then talk about some of the elements here.
Sure.
I'm okay.
Look! We're flying!
It's okay. I'm used to it. I lived through the 60s.
Can you talk about us a little bit about how you guys pull that off when he grabs the sack and sort of starts flying?
Well, that was a cable rig. Just getting him in a harness and pulling him up and dragging him across is a feat. I don't know if you've ever been in a harness like that, but they're really uncomfortable.
And you also have to look like you're being lifted, not necessarily just floating. So there's a lot to it.
Tim, we got good news. You're not in a fat suit today.
Yeah, right.
Good.
But
here's the thing.
You're going to hurt.
Put this climbing harness on around your private parts.
The family jewels are going to hurt for a while. Yeah.
You'll sit in that. Yeah. Also, choice to use animatronic reindeer, not obviously either visual effects or real animals that you kind of dress up.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the specifics of working with animatronics?
They actually had quite a bit of expression for animatronic reindeer.
Oof. Easy, Rudolph.
Excuse me. Comet.
And just getting the eyes to pop was a challenge, because it was so dark, they just absorbed light. I don't remember any specific problems that we had with it. It was just a little bit time consuming getting the head movement, right.
Were they on radio control or were they puppeting?
They were hydraulic, I believe.
Okay.
I think we had guys that, that hydraulically moved them.
Right. It is a process.
Yeah, no, it is a process.
It's a team.
Yeah,
it's not just one guy.
Oh, no,
it really is.
Yeah, there's one guy to turn the head and one guy to do the, the eyelids up and one guy to move the mouth. I mean, and then little things, just like the ballroom in the elf, warehouse. You see the balls going back and forth. We probably had 6 guys back there throwing balls back and forth. You just do that, CGI.
100%. You just add it later.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun doing things old school too.
And there's another great moment too where the film sort of gets into the Santa's sack, right? Like, how would Santa's sack hold all the toys? Well, it kind of magically refills itself.
Right.
And there's a great moment where he pulls the
kayak.
It's the kayak. How did you do that?
Basically, just the set was elevated and there was a hole in the floor of the set. It was very simple,
Right.
And so we cut to it when the bag is already sitting on the ground,
Right.
and then someone's just feeding the damn kayak up through
And
the
he
bottom
literally
of the
just
floor.
has to lift it up.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can outthink yourself with visual effects.
Right.
Sometimes the practical solution is actually the best one in a way because it looks like you're doing what you're doing.
Right. It solves a problem, but then it creates other problems because once you lift the set up, 9 feet or 8 feet, in order to get the kayak under it, then you have the problem of lighting a set that's, the floor is 9 feet off the
Can't put
ground.
the tripod on the ground, right?
But that's what we do, solve problems.
Right.
Or we should call them opportunities, I think.
That's right. That's the healthy way of saying it, right? On set.
Well, we can't thank you enough for coming in and going down memory lane and sharing
thank
all
you.
these stories with us. And I know you said you don't appear on camera a lot. You don't do a lot of interviews in general, and certainly not about this movie. But I wouldn't know that. It was really great to hear your thoughts and your insight in this. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Pete, it's the holidays.
Yes.
What do you think about? You think about food. You and I, we're dudes. We love food.
Oh, yes. We love cooking. We love cooking for and with our families.
Yes.
And we're going to be doing a lot of cooking on our Traeger this holiday season.
Yes.
In fact, we're going to fire it up and we're going to do a turkey on the Traeger and we're going to smoke a pie for dessert.
Done.
So many great products. They have rubs, they have sauces. At Traeger.com, you can get all of your cooking needs right there in one stop. And I've been using the Wi-Fi connectivity, which means that I can monitor the temperature, the duration of the cook right on the Traeger app on my phone.
Right.
I don't even have to be at home. So for something like the size of a turkey, I get it on, I get the probes in it, and I just start to watch this thing as it cooks. I don't have to keep opening the lid, doing the push test, second guessing, hoping that it's done. I know exactly to the number what the internal temperature is, and I basically just wait until it's done.
They have the pellets. They have different flavored pellets. They have different sauces and rubs and everything. It's all encompassing.
So whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned veteran, Traeger has the right grill for you. These grills are available in all different types at Traeger.com, and they have a sale going on right now. They don't do a lot of sales. It's $300 off select grills. Go to Traeger.com, check it out.
Justice not served.
As funny as the Santa Claus is, it also has a lot of dramatic elements to it.
Yeah, I think what's paramount, though, what supersedes everything is the relationship between he and his son.
Yes, that's right. And, the son believes him because he was on the journey.
He's the one that...
delivering presents, but society, adults, the law really start to doubt his sanity and maybe even his safety to be a father.
Right.
So let's take a look at a scene where they're waiting on the outcome of the judge's decision if Scott can even be a parent anymore.
Where's Charlie? I want to talk to him.
He's with the judge.
It's all okay. I told the judge everything about you and the North Pole.
After reviewing all of your testimonies, I've come to a very difficult decision. I'm sorry to do this in light of the holiday season, but in the best interest of the child, I'm granting the petition of Dr. and Mrs. Miller. Mr. Kelvin, as of today, all of your visitation rights are suspended pending a hearing after the first of the year.
The movie really stops necessarily trying to be funny. And I think the movies that are timeless, that are not only funny and the jokes endure, but they're really about something that's also timeless and about something that we all care about and that really matters, and they're not afraid to go there.
Yeah, having personal convictions, knowing that, while the whole rest of the world is deeming you crazy, you still know, and the audience knows. The audience is on it, right? We've
That's
seen
right.
them go to the North Pole. We've seen them, deliver gifts. So we know he's not crazy. But through it all, with his ex-wife not believing him, a psychiatrist, a professional mental health professional telling him this guy's out of his
Right.
mind, and a court order, and he's still staying true to his convictions. What audience member is not going to root for this guy to find a fix for these issues and hope for a happy ending to the story?
Handcuffing Christmas.
Well, after performing the job of Santa Claus, he's been through the naughty and nice list. He's grown a beard. His hair's long. He's big.
He's taking on the responsibility.
He's starting to take on all the responsibilities.
Yeah.
That's right. But Scott Calvin does not want to adhere to that court order of not being with his son.
Right.
They both sneak out of the house on Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
They sneak into the sleigh and start to deliver presents. So when Charlie's mom sees he's gone, the police put out an APB for Scott Calvin. Probably not good for all the kids across the world.
Right.
And that leads us into All Is Lost of this movie. Well, it doesn't get much more All Is Lost than that. Santa Claus is in jail on Christmas Eve. That's going to put a damper on getting gifts out for kids.
Yeah, and twofold, he's lost the ability to see his son by the authorities, handcuffed, and is in the back of a cop cruiser, and he's jeopardized his livelihood, his job. He's Santa Claus. He's there to deliver presents, and he's 0 for 2.
Yeah, well, Christmas is definitely in jeopardy with Santa Claus and the Pokey.
Father Christmas.
So, with Christmas seemingly in jeopardy, an elite unit of elves from the North Pole are there. They have many abilities. One of them is to fly.
The special forces, if you will, of the elves.
Special forces of the North Pole.
SEAL Team Elf.
SEAL Team Elf. So they're there to get Santa Claus back on track.
And they do, yeah. They get him back into the sled. He is delivering presents once again.
Resuming his duties, and he finds himself at his home.
At his old home, Charlie's home.
Yes.
And that leads us to the end of conflict of this film. Let's take a look.
Bye, Mom!
Just a quick one. And not over any oceans, Scott.
Bye, Mom!
Scott.
Bye!
Scott. Santa.
Well, there you have it. Everyone is forever changed.
She even calls him Santa at the end.
She even calls him Santa in the end. The one who doubted him, thought he was insane, tried to get his son taken away from him through a court order, has now fully accepted him. And this family, I mean, it's pretty cool. Your dad's Santa Claus. They're going to find a way to work together. And I think that's, it's messy, but it's relatable.
Yeah.
There are a lot of families and members of families that are in either somewhat split apart or different or unique situations. And, this movie kind of gives you hope that you can work through those. You can find a solution. Anyone can. If a guy as extreme as Scott Calvin, selfish, can literally become Santa Claus, and they can figure it out, it kind of gives hope that maybe a lot of other families can too.
Right. Even the comfortability at the end of family again, and just that dynamic of her, Scott, no oceans, Scott, and
That's right.
He's just kind of ignoring
not
her, but
perfect.
everything's fine now. Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
He's not fully going to stop being Scott Calvin.
They're going over the ocean.
Right.
She knows.
But there's trust, and that's going to be okay, and that's life.
Yeah.
So where this movie stacks up, it came out in 1994. For as good as the movie is, it actually did not open to number one.
It didn't, Pete, and I know who did. Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah, which really dominated. And the next week wasn't any easier.
It was Star Trek the next week, I believe.
Feature, right. So what generally happens is movies kind of start to fall down, and they weren't going to reach that number one status.
Right.
But not the Santa Claus. It kind of used back up and hits the top spot for a couple of weeks after that.
Right.
And stays around, eventually making $145 million domestic in 1994. So the film was...
Which even today would be.
Yeah, which
fantastic.
Today would be great. It's fantastic back then. It's definitely a financial success. This film is kind of a universe with two sequels to the Santa Claus feature films.
Right.
And the Santa Clauses, a television series
right.
That Tim Allen stars in. So it's really created a lot of entertaining shows around this original premise of the Santa Claus. And at one point, we had talked about how Tim was writing his memoir during the prep of this. So his memoir comes out. He has the #1 television show, the #1 book, and the #1 movie in the world at the same time.
Right.
And that had never been done and has never been done since.
Right.
It's pretty remarkable achievement. And I think any questions about could Tim Allen cross over? Was he the right choice for this role? Were very quickly dispelled.
And according to the writers and the director of photography on this film, couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
And Tim's gone on to have an incredible career. Still as a stand-up on television again with the continuation of Last Man Standing, even changing networks and multiple film roles. So the Santa Claus holds up like a lot of these, sneaks into the top 5, top 10 every year.
Right.
It comes around during the holidays and is a really, really enjoyable watch.
Well, I enjoyed watching this with you, and this is one I'm definitely going to be watching with my family come this holiday season. So thank you again for allowing me to be a part of this
here. Thank you for being a part.
cinematic Christmas journey, Peter.
Yes, and this is the Santa Claus, and Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.